Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the networking session. And so next we have applying technology in competitive intelligence today. Where is my robot analyst? And so I'm pleased to introduce Andrew Beurschgens, who will be moderating the panel comprised of Gabrielle Enderberg and Mina Almola and Dominique Jeitzener, excuse me. And at this point, we're still we're waiting for oh, there we are. Mina is joined us. So we're having also a couple of little technical hiccups as well. So we'll let Mina catch her breath as I introduce the panel. And so we will be shortly joined by Dominique as well. But at this point, I'm just going to turn this over to my colleague, CI Fellow, Andrew.
Thank you very much indeed, Cynthia. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, most importantly, the panel, based on some of the challenges that we've had over the time zones and everything in between. But equally, welcome to the audience as well, participants, one and all. And hopefully you've come back from the networking event in good time. So as Cynthia said, my name is Andrew Beurschgens. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone, to our viewers, and welcome to our panelists for our upcoming debate entitled Where's My Robot Analyst? And applying the technology in competitive intelligence today. So as Cynthia said, my name is Andrew Beurschgens. I'm the Senior Market Intelligence Manager at BT. And for the next 45 minutes or so, we'll be able to hopefully facilitate this panel and do it justice in the time that we have together. But by means of introduction first, I'm super delighted with the panelists that we have today, finally, to join me here today. And by way of introduction, I'll allow them to introduce themselves. I always go ladies first. Don't take that as a microaggression, anybody. But Mina, over to you. If you'd like to sort of introduce yourself, where you fit in within the Tata Business Group of Excellence, and some of the tools and toys that you have played with or not played with or have in your armory with regards to the role that you handsomely fulfill at Tata Group. Over to you, Mina.
Yes. Hello, everybody. That was a stressful joining session, but we made it, so I'm happy. Positive outcome, which is good. So yes, so I work with a small division of Tata Sons, which is the principal holding company of the Tata Group, which I'm not sure if all of you are familiar with, but it's a multinational conglomerate headquartered in India. So I work for the Tata Business Excellence Group, which is kind of the key driver of the business excellence movement. And as part of that, we also evangelize and build awareness about the need and the benefits of competitive intelligence within organizations. So, we kind of really help the different companies within the Tata Group to embed CI processes, and we advise them on tools and techniques that would be most relevant for their organization. So in general, in terms of technology, what we do see is that social media tools are quite popular among the B2C companies, but are used more for consumer insights, I would say, rather than competitive insights. And the B2B companies are still kind of, I think, a little behind and are still evaluating more suitable tools for their company usage. But having said that, companies like TCS, for instance, have their own custom-built platform. So that's also an option that some of the more mature companies kind of go over. So
brilliant. No, thank you for that. Who knew that DIY was still vogue? But we'll probably cross that bridge later in our discussion. Gabrielle, would you like to introduce yourself to the great and the good gathered here today?
Thank you. Yes, I think my background in this topic is that mid-90s I was at Ericsson and headed up the global intelligence operations of the company together with the team there. Then myself and my good colleagues and friends Jesper and Anders left Ericsson in 98 and set up the platform company Comintelli. So I've been very much into the software part of and technology platform part of CI for many years. And then 2019, I decided that I wanted to go back into the market, closer to the market than I was at Comintelli, because I was very much in the admin part, and set up a new company called Insion, and doing essentially similar things, but working very much with the sustainability in the financial markets and those kinds of things. And also Jesper and I found some time during the 2 last years to also write a book that I think you will mention later on, Andrew. So
yes, I might slip that title out. And
yes.
yeah, given not only your 20 plus years and Jesper's 20 plus years, perhaps the size of the tome doesn't do the experience that you have justice. We'll also be joined by a colleague of ours called Dominique Yaitziner, from Swisscom. So if you see a sudden interjection of a fresh face, somewhat haggard, in trying to join the platform, that will be Dominique. And when Dominique does arrive, we'll do a quick intro for Dominique. Yeah, by way of introduction, I sort of alluded to where I fit into all of this, but I suppose, from a BT perspective, we're a centralized insight function now, having been taken out of the lines of business. And when we think about, where's my robot analyst and some of the tools that we have, made, abused, used, everything in between, we've typically used them for obviously the online subscriptions are given, right? Your Factivas are given, James Bell's opening address, but we've also sort of lent into, the volumes of conversations that go on in the public domain through, enterprise social media listening as well, through a platform called Brandwatch. And we also have, used and continue to use a platform that we've customized ourselves, working with a company called Altia or Cogni, to disseminate the insight, not just from a market perspective, but also with respect to our relationship through our targeted brands with our customer groups. So, classic market research. So, that's the sort of background that we bring to this panel. Please feel free to interject with questions, comments, as we go through, and we'll try and do those justice as we see fit. So a very colourful audience indeed, over different time zones with different experiences, working with and for companies of different scales and different sizes and different cultures and attitudes. So before we get started too deeply, and recognize that our great colleagues have been here for some considerable time, either on a networking event or hearing James, let's open a poll. So you should see on your screen to the far right next to the chat, there's this thing called poll. If you'd like to open that, our poll is basically trying to get some understanding as to who we're talking to out there. We see lots of comments coming through, but we have no real idea as to where the audience is at with regards to its relationship with technology, as we'll jump into the meat of our discussion. So our poll is, if you found it, and I'm rambling to help you find it, based on your experiences, for which areas of either competitive intelligence, market intelligence, insight, project, curation, cycles, call it what you will, does technology provide the best benefit? You can see a number of options there. I've an inkling, but that's why I'm here, through to planning and direction, collection, visualization, analysis, dissemination, or technology will never, that thing will never catch on. So if you'd like to tick the three areas where you think that is most relevant, that would be awesome. Unfortunately, I won't be able to see the poll because based on the vision and the view that I've got, if somebody could share in the chat what they see as the answers coming back, and then we'll get straight into it. Anybody share what the poll said? Unfortunately, I can't see it.
Well, so it wasn't just me.
No, it's not just you, and it's not just Mina. It's Dominique as well. So let's have a guess at what the poll said. So I would hypothesize, given the note of our discussion here today at the moment, that actually analysis won't be coming high up on the agenda. So Craig says, when I hear robot analysts, I immediately think of R2D2 or Watson, for example. What would you have ticked if you, so knowing the technology solutions that you've seen, Mina, from the technologies that you've tried to implement, Gabrielle, where do you think the technology probably adds most relative to those areas? Planning, direction, collection, visualization, analysis, or dissemination? Where would you think technology adds the most bang for the buck?
I'd definitely say collection, but I'd add another layer of classification, as in kind of organizing the data that you're collecting. And another one I would probably, which I think wasn't on your list, but a searchable repository. I think like a central repository. I think technology is super helpful there, and we've seen that in quite a few companies. So those are my two.
I would agree with that. I mean, the collection part, if I have to pick one or two, maybe three of these, the collection part, because it's simply not doable without technology today. So I mean, there's no way you can do it. And the second one that I was going to pick was actually visualization, but that is also, I mean, you can't visualize unless you classify and categorize it. So I agree entirely, Mina, that software has to do that work for you as well. There's a variety of different types of algorithm models that you can use, but still you have to do that in order to get some sensible visualization. And as we discussed, I mean, the analysis part, it should support analysis, but it's the visualization that helps me.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that sentiment, and thank you for the super speed typing in the comments. We've actually got an understanding here as to how people responded. Understandably, although August at the start of the session said, prior to James joining us, he said that what he would ideally like for Christmas is a bot that had the ability to arrange calendars and engage with your calendar to ensure that there is the mutual benefit of stuff. He might have to wait a few more Christmases for that to happen, but I think it's a good place to start. I know, August, you want your calendar bot. So let's get into the heart of the issue. We might have an impatient audience here in front of us. Given the tsunami of information that's being generated, how frequently things are changing and do change, and also the fact that a lot of markets are operating in volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous states. Do you think that actually there is space for a robot analyst or not? Or from your experiences, where does the human come in to complement a lot of the technology? Have you got any use cases where that's come to the fore? Gabrielle, what's your take on this?
Well, fundamentally, I mean, I always respond to the question, can software do analysis with a firm no? Then, of course, it's all a matter of definition. But I mean, what you use the software for is, as we discussed, structuring, visualizing, supporting your analysis processes. But also, where you said, getting prompt use cases where that has been really useful. And one example that I've seen, for instance, is that you can do it by means of software. You can narrow down and make the analysis flow extremely granular, and thereby probing parts of an organization that does not necessarily usually engage in BI or that type of operations, and just get the response. If you're in a big company, no one could cover all the different knowledges that you need in order to make some sort of analytical assessments, and their software can really come into play to help probing those sort of expert silos in organizations.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. No, Gabrielle. Mina, have you had any what's your take on this?
Yeah, so we've had some interesting experiences. So I'll just narrate one of them. So we worked with one of the Tata Group companies, fairly large, and they wanted to digitize SCI processes along with other things. So we really helped them vet about 8, I think, CI platform providers. And they did like what they saw. They enjoyed the demos. They evaluated each player based on the systems, where the system resides, or the levels of security, interface with other systems, all the usual criteria. But the strange thing was that eventually they didn't go with any of the providers. And the two key reasons, which was quite interesting, were that the question was, can any of these provide us with insights? And we were like, no, we don't think that exists yet. But that was one of them. And the other one was, how can you ensure usage? Like, if we get this platform, can you tell us that people will use it? And again, the answer there was, that's not something we can kind of guarantee, or a platform provider can, for that matter. So slightly, they kind of wanted something delivered that cannot be promised. At this point.
What would you think are some of the barriers to platform adoption in terms of getting end users to adopt? Gabrielle, have you seen, from the multitude of organizations that you've engaged with, what sort of programs and activities have worked to make the business aware of such a platform existing, but equally encouraging them to use, whether it's to collect or whether it is to consume?
I think that the key issue to think about there is, if one reason why you fail with the platform is a lack of purpose. So you just put a platform in place and hope that it will solve a problem that you really haven't defined. And also, I think two general platforms where they sort of more develop into an internal use bureau, no one's going to use that. I mean, you really need to target which constituencies have which analytical issues that they need to address, and then support them with a platform. So that there's a lot of preparatory work to be done before you can actually go down that route. But if you do that, I would say from even from a vendor perspective, but definitely from a sort of sponsoring perspective in a company, that it's most likely that people will start using it if you provide the service that they're looking for. But I think that's very often get a sort of a gap. That, how can I put it? I've seen a number of projects where it's more a team that wishes to provide what they know rather than what their sort of receivers are asking to get. And that type of approach typically is bound to fail.
I get that. Mina, from you sort of referenced in your opening sort of introduction that you've had part of the Tata Group do a DIY. Was that the result of the evaluating of the 8 platforms, or was that a completely different thing?
Oh no, that's a completely different company. But no, there are companies that would prefer to. They were like, why can't we build this? So. If it's working for them, how can we say, okay, no, you've got to get a platform outside? So, if it's then in terms of TCS, it's working very well for them. They're doing very well. They're using those insights for sure. So, if they could build it, but they happen to be a software company themselves. So not everybody is. So that kind of worked in their favor.
Yeah. Go on, Gabrielle, you go on.
Yeah, no, because obviously, having been in the platform business for many years, that's something we encountered. And I mean, granted, I guess any large company with a decent software or IT department can build a software, and that does decent things. But then comes the big thing: maintenance over time. How are they going to keep that updated? Because usually developments like that are done by some sort of extremely energetic and what do you say, enthusiastic IT guys together with the CI team. But when they move on, who's going to take over? Who's the product owner, if you like, of the platform that shall then sort of deliver the value to the organization? I think that's where you really run into situations where it might become a problem.
Yeah, no, I get that as well. I mean, the 2 examples that I alluded to badly in my introduction was, listening in at scale, so very much around the collection element, not through a classic either MI or CI platform, but just an enterprise grade social media listening platforms. There are others out there, but the one that we have used is Brandwatch. And the problem state that we threw at it is that we were aware that a new competitor was due to enter the market. We would never be able to understand what that experience was going to be like for those customers, or even the reaction of that new entrant to the market would be, because the base would take a long time to build. Their experience with the proposition would take some time, and to actually try and understand, how people were reacting to the proposition that they launched with would take, an inordinate amount of time and also money to try and reach a discrete user group. So, the unstructured conversation that's available in, some of that social media listening world is something that's there in the public domain. And, we pointed Brandwatch at that challenge. We work with somebody who'll be on, one of the panels later on tomorrow, Catriona Aldershaw, to sort of help us provide what we described as an early read at speed. An ability, well, the promise was to allow our board to sleep well at night with the, this new entrant. And, we worked quite a long period of time in sort of proving the use case by comparing and contrasting how other market events are translated into social media. So as they had a sort of understanding as to, what the relative scale or magnitude of understanding, even some of our own events that we threw into that mix as part of our audit, to help prove the case that actually when this stuff does land, this is the likelihood of reaction to it. We're all very raw to our own events of things that had gone well and things that had not gone well, and how those had translated into social media. So it gave them an element of scale. And certainly within, the 24 hours, the day of the event, we were able to sort of allow the board to sleep well at night relative to the scale of the publicity that it generated. Who was doing the most talking? Was it, the industry analysts doing a lot of the chest beating and brow beating, or was it more of the end user, super excited about the emergence of this proposition? And that did work well. Why did we recognize that it worked well? The feedback that we received, having taken the sort of data and curated it into the insight, and then, funnily enough, bizarrely enough, put it into PowerPoint, which was the medium of communication that our board understood at the time and continues to understand. So we took that in its simplest form. We used the visualization of what that did, and if they wanted to get under the skin of what individuals were saying about it, we were able to sort of elicit that. So from the multitude of conversations that are there in the public domain, we managed to boil it down into the two slides, which is, this is the scale of what's being talked about, this is the net sentiment, how much of it is positive, how much of it is negative, and equally, who was doing the talking compared to the last 30 days or 60 days. And here are the positive things and the negative things that they'd already said. And we also use a platform, but only from a dissemination perspective. It isn't the curation, it isn't the collection, it isn't the analysis element, but one where we have used and worked with a company called Altia to help us bring together not only the industry analysts and what they're saying about certain topics and how they're relevant to certain go-to-market areas, but also our in-house curated work, whether it's the classic market research execution or whether it is the market intelligence, whether it's data book this or visualization that, or actually the whole journey of getting to a recommendation, which hope gets adopted. Nobody seems to have referenced either in the talks or even what you've said, Mina, or even what you've said, Gabrielle, in terms of the impact and getting across the decision and the actionability. And actually, Gabrielle, in your recent book, let me refer to the recent book, the garden centricity analogy that you use in curating gardens of intelligence and how software comes to the fore. You actually look at the sort of CI/MI wheel and actually say a lot of that in its waterfall statement is relatively old-fashioned now, and actually things are happening in a more agile way, and you actually put an extra step in the wheel called the actionability and the impact. Nobody's actually said by having the software we get consumers to consume the insight, we get the decision makers to sort of act on it. So from your experience and with the different sizes of organization and industries that you've deployed some of these platforms, what would you say are the sort of three most critical success factors you would share with this audience about getting to make it work?
Well, I mean, you said it for me. And the first one that we discussed before, also the purpose. I mean, there has to be a clear purpose, and the purpose should, in the best of worlds, be communicated with a very senior ambassador, meaning that, okay, this is important. It's not just a small team that's going to work with it. It's something that goes for the entire company. And then also the impact part. Unless after some time you can prove there's an impact, I mean, honestly, why should you continue? I mean, the whole idea is that by the service being provided through a platform, business should be making better results going forward. So, I mean, those are the two key things. And then also, I think when you implement something like this, a key thing that you might not think all that much about at the beginning is to make sure you have a coherent one sort of single platform. So you don't have too many of those, different things that are popping around, because what you want to do is to build one interface for lots of people that they can share and work with together, so they get the same picture. Even if you then sort of granulize the results and what's in the platform, that everyone has the same sort of framework to work with.
Yeah. Oh, what a delight to see you here, Dominique. You should get the Perseverance Award just to be here. We are grateful that you could join us. And as I forewarned our audience gathered here today, Dominique, we would go back to your introduction, so as people would be able to hear a little bit more from you and our fourth panelist. So by way of introduction, Dominique, do you just want to say a few words about who you are, where you fit into Swisscom, and some of the sort of platforms that you've used going forward?
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. I'm sorry that I'm a bit late. That's not a typical Swiss. But
you invented the clock, right?
Finally, I'm here. So I'm responsible for strategic market intelligence at Swisscom. Swisscom is an incumbent in the telco sector, serving B2B and B2C customers, telco business, ICT solutions on the B2B side. And I'm part of the corporate strategy, therefore do quite a lot of strategy work, and we have a decentralized team. So there are all the people dealing with MI and CI topics in B2C and in B2B.
Yeah, lovely. What sort of platforms have you played with, Dominique? And sort of, without discussing or revealing too many details that you're uncomfortable with, what sort of was the use case that you threw at it first?
Yeah, so we mainly used some tools on the analysis and visualization side. And I think we made a very good experience there by doing some trend analysis, for example, for the strategy process. We had a lot of discussions in the past where we had a lot of trends, hundreds of trends, and it was very difficult to find the right ones. We had a lot of discussion also with management. Do you have the right trends in the analysis? And with using some AI-based tools, it was getting much better, because you were able to visualize the whole set of trends, to quantify the trends also, and also I think sometimes management they trust machines, and they think that the outcome is much better than when you're doing all things on yourself. And we were able to analyze, to do the analysis of 700-800 trends quite simply, but it took us a lot of effort to get there, a lot of trial and error to find the right data set, and a lot of training to use the tools. And I think it was good, because we do it each year, so we can save some time in the future. But for the first analysis, it was rather a pain.
Yeah. And in what way was it a pain, Dominique?
No, because you see all the use cases, and you expect a lot of things also from the vendor side. It's AI, it's automated, it's simple, And when you look at the use cases that they show, everything looks very easy, and you think, well, a few hours and then I will have all my results. And I think you have to be a bit persistent and really to, as I said before, trial and error, and to try to improve. And at the end, the result was really great. I think I'm quite proud of the analysis, and we have found some other use cases. But each time it's a bit trial and error. Does it work? Should we use some other data? And sometimes you don't know if you have the right outcome, or if this is really useful. But I think when you have done it, when you're successful, it helps to shift the discussion to the more important question. So what for your company? What does it mean for your company? And then I think it's really worth the effort.
Yeah, I mean, Mina, when you were describing some of the use cases that, through your evaluation, 8 platforms, a certain part of the Tata group, it was sort of, will it provide me with the insight, and will it help me make decisions? What sorts of things were, from your cultural perspective or Tata's perspective, what were they looking for the platform to do? Because Dominique's just alluded to the fact that his culture seems to have greater trust, in a platform and a software, in terms of being able to prioritize those trends. What was it that your guys or ladies were looking for, from a platform at Tata?
Well, it's interesting you bring up culture, because I think that was the key. I think the CI, I think at the Tata Group, we're a little behind our Western counterparts, and the culture of CI, that we need this information and we have to have it, and that is still kind of work in progress. And so to be convinced that a platform is going to work for you, I think that was a fairly large gap that we, had to help them kind of understand. But they still, they thought, okay, you plug in this platform and you're going to get these insights that we can use to make decisions, to know what our competitors are doing, mostly for tracking competitors. But they wouldn't make that leap. There was some kind of faith missing there that they just wouldn't, budge from there.
Yeah, so, I get that. Gabriel, you sort of raised your hand.
Yeah, no, I got 2 reflections, not just one. The first one on Mina's this culture thing. I wouldn't contrast India with the Western world, if you like. I mean, the whole culture thing has been a tremendously fun part to monitor and develop even within Europe and the US and different parts of the US. To be honest, I mean, it really can differ between different countries and different states. It's not just between like India and the West. Far from. I could spend an entire panel discussing just that and having some really funny stories. But I also wanted just to reflect on Dominique's comment here. You see vendors coming and said they're promising the world, and then you realize that there is some prep work that needs to be done. And if you forgive, Andrew, I'll go back to our book, because that is really one of the key storylines, and it does take time. And can I discuss that without sort of breaking any borders here? Because what we've done in the book is we split the process of actually getting something like this in place into 6 different steps. And the whole idea is that you have to go step by step, but it's also very important that you can sort of rest on each step, so you don't have this massive 2-3 year project ahead of you, but you can actually claim some really good value after the first step, and the second step, and the third step, and then even pause for a year and then continue, if you like, to the 4th, or however you like to build it. But really find those different levels of, if you like, CI service or whatever in your company that does provide that impact we talked about before, the value that, and you can get to that point but rather quickly after you started it. But you need to do the preparation work, and I think that is extremely important, Dominic, that you sort of brought that up. But it's not just getting a software in place. You need to do a lot of sort of prep work around that to make it deliver the value that you're expecting.
Yeah, and I like what Dominique said about the fact that, it does require effort on behalf of the individuals, not only sponsoring the platform, but actually working with the platform. And super encouraged by the fact that you, Dominique, had thrown a use case at it, that you continue to want to repeat for value add and impact within Swisscom, which is, looking at how the magnitude of trends is changing, and therefore are, certain, as we heard in James Bell's opening address, some of these weak signals suddenly then materialize into things that are bigger, perhaps before they get to government legislation, and then, the structure's in place and everybody floods in onto the opportunity. But definitely the whole effort of, learned a lot of things, got to a stage, got to acceptance, and then, eat, slept, repeat, as it were, the tool again for maximum input. What would you advise the great and the good here today as to the things really to look out for from your experience, Dominique?
I think from my experience, it was good to start small. So you don't have to promise too many things to the management, and really to position it as a trial. It's a trial. We will see how it works, and then I think the expectation is not that big, and to start also with a topic that is not too complicated, where you have for example, only one language included. We quite often have sources with different languages. That's quite complicated for software to deal with. So I think it was a good start to have quite a simple task where we did this trend analysis, and in the meantime we found some other use cases that are more complex, and therefore also the value of the tool is of these kind of tools is quite accepted after a certain while. But it took us 3 or 4 years till we didn't have the discussions anymore. Should we spend money on software instead of research companies, content, advice from analysts, for example?
I get that completely. Completely understand. Because the tools, it's a bit like stood in front of to use your garden analogy, you sort of, if any of us were to disappear from our roles tomorrow and a new person were to come in, that person could trample over the good germination that you've struck, the seeds that you've sown, the grass that has materialized, and in all intents and purposes, not only trample over that grass, but probably concrete over it and, turn it into some sort of, hideous barbecue platform instead.
That would hinder adaptability to the changing business environment, if I can use that word.
No, I get that, and I'm super, because some of the technology platforms out there, did you get assurances from the vendor that you worked with, Dominique, that said this is a trial and therefore could we, sort of spend relative to that trial? How did you sort of broker that sort of challenge?
Yeah, I think of course this was quite a tough discussions at the beginning, and I think sometimes you expect some free trials. But I think when the tool is a bit more complex, when you need training, then also from customer side, I think you cannot expect that everything is for free and you can do a trial for half a year. So I think it should be somewhere in between, and we were able to sign a trial contract. It was quite cheap, but we invested some money, so it wasn't there for free. And I think that's also helps you internally, that people are motivated to spend some time on the tool. I think sometimes things that are for free, there's also not a lot of value. And when my colleagues, when they joined the trainings for training sessions, they also learned a lot of how nowadays these AI-based software tools, how they work, what they're able to do. And I think it's also a lot about learning, and it adds also some value from this perspective.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, from the experiences that you great panelists have had, somewhat biased, I think, Gabrielle, what do you think the potential is of the human in the loop, right? So we recognize that problem definition typically starts with the human mind with regards to the challenges that respective businesses see before them or not, as the case may be. Where do you see the potential of these technology platforms to aid value to their, to the respective organizations, having taken, in some instances, the detailed plunge, similar to Mina's, thorough exploration of things to explore as to whether the platform is right or not, concluded that it wasn't. What do you think is the potential of some of these things going forward? Mina?
Yeah, I would think probably the ability to actually pick up on the signals that the software is seeing, and maybe, I don't know if this can happen, but actually predict competitor moves. I think if so, more of the predictability, if that's possible. I'm not aware of anything yet, but yeah, I think kind of that would be like, wow, okay, this software is telling us that competitor X is going to do this very soon, and how are we going to react? So that's just a thought from me. But,
yeah, nice. Improved predictability. Dominique, where would you like, given the experiences that you've had, where would you like these tools to enhance the value that you continue to bring to Swisscom?
So I think in a world where you have increasing data that is available, I think we should try to make some data-driven decisions, and therefore we need tools. Otherwise, we're not able to digest all this kind of information that is available. And I think, therefore, I expect that there's a great value from this tool, and in drive data based decisions, and also it frees some capacities to derive insights. So I think still at the end, it's what an analyst is doing is the most important. Out of this data, this is only basics, I think. And then when this is more convenient, you can start to derive some value out of the data.
Yeah, I get you. What about you, Gabrielle? You are on both sides. You've straddled both sides.
Yep.
What would you want the platforms to do, and what prevents them from getting there?
Well, first and foremost, I agree entirely with both Dominic and Mina, what you just said. I mean, spot on. What I think also when it comes to technology, I think we're only in the beginning. Even if we've been working with those platforms for decades now, I think we're still just in the beginning of getting the help out of those platforms when it comes to all different types of decision processes in companies. And I think that's where what we need to do is to first and foremost realize that software is just a tool, which means we need to learn to ask the questions of the software. And for instance, where you said, Mina, can we have a tool that predicts what a competitor is going to do? Well, it depends how you ask the question. Obviously, you can always get the answer 42 if you're not careful. But very often when we look at signal spotting and that kind of predictability that you're after, I tend to say, yeah, but what you can use the software for is to find deviations from what you expected. So in a sense, you need to have your analytical process in place so you can say, okay, expect this. And then suddenly the software can tell you, nope, they're doing this instead. And that can help you make the prediction that, all right, something unexpected is happening and they're probably changing direction right here. So I think it's a way of working with the software and knowing how to ask the questions on a very granular sort of scope. That is the key to the next generation of software sort of deployments.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. I mean, if we take not the garden analogy, but say Formula One, right? If the vendor side of life create the Formula One car, it's no good putting my mother-in-law behind the wheel of it and expecting her to win, the championship, or even putting me behind the wheel of a car. All intents and purposes, there has to be, as James alluded to in his keynote address, put the human in the loop, as it were, in terms of, as you alluded to, Gabrielle, having the human to then sort of understand, the perception as to whether, something is good or bad relative to where you draw the line in the first place. I mean, dashboard seems to be quite a sexy / dull / 2x2 / traffic light signal of change, right? So it's an interesting one relative to the volume of data that Dominique's experienced, through to the need for insights that Mina was asking for, this whole dashboard approach. And August at the start saying that, for 15 to 45 minutes of every working day he goes through the platform of choice that he has. Other platforms are available, to go through a lot of that news. So it's an interesting one for sure.
Another thing that is tricky, I mean, if I can add that, just as a reflection on what you said, Andrew, that, is this good or is this bad? What comes out of what I see on the screen, is this good on my desktop or is it bad? Well, I mean, if you're a Swisscom or a Tata, what is good in one part of the company can be super bad in another part of the company. So you can't have one evaluation of one piece of information. You have to have context-based evaluation throughout the company. And even that is just one layer of complexity that adds to it.
And back to that point, James made, which is the whole subject matter expert requirement, other than, defining the problem and then assembling the data for it, that context of what obviously Dominic brings to his role, Mina brings to hers, and, what you've done, for other organizations as well as your new one, Gabrielle, is quite a good thing. Is there an app for that? Is the question. Subject matter experts, is there an app for that?
Working on it.
for the business problem of sustainability.
Yep.
I get that. Are there any more? I've seen comments coming through on the chat. Great feedback from the Great and the Good that's assembled. From everybody rating Swisscom as a on-time organisation and a pucker place to work, Dominique. So not your fault. I'm just pulling your leg. All the way through to are there apps for that, and in high support. So when we sort of reflect on the 45 minutes that we've enjoyed together, when you look at it, you sort of say there is no robot analyst. Mina's experiences have had that. Culture does a little bit get in the way. We need to invest the time into this, and that time isn't the software alone. That is the individual or the individuals working with that platform to throw the right use cases at it, and hopefully make a decision around the platform that is extremely flexible as your use cases evolve, rather than trying to plumb in everything that's in the pantry and hope that you can still feed from it at the end of the day. So by wrapping this up, I know it was a bad analogy. Sincere thanks indeed for everybody, A, joining this panel, B, equally our audience and the strong interactions that we've had, and also some of the signposts and signals that we've started to scatter around the rest of not only today but tomorrow as well. So thank you very much indeed.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Over to you, Cynthia. You're on mute, my darling. Yeah.
Thank you so much to this panel, Andrew for moderating this, and Gabrielle and Mina, as well as Dominique. And this has been a wonderful conversation. I'm following the comments, and they're very robust. And I think there are a lot of wonderful takeaways as well, in line with what we were hoping for this summit. So thank you.